What's up, everybody? Bets and Ball Games with Edwards and Greeson. Welcome in. We're recording on Thursday, coming up on 2:30 Eastern. Let's tell you about our good friends at Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of 200 large. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online. The game starts here. What's up, Mr. Greeson? Dressed nicely for us today.
Well, for the worst of possible reasons, attended an early afternoon funeral before we come to the good folks here at, I don't know, roughly 2 o'clock, 2:30 on Thursday afternoon. But I appreciate, the kid from Smyrna can shower and get gussied up occasionally.
Right on. All right, let's start with our good, bad, and ugly from week 4. And I'll start it. Arkansas let one get away at Oklahoma State on a day when they moved the ball up and down the field and had no business losing. And then on a day on the Plains where their offense wasn't really clicking the way that it has been for the most part, and yet they find a way to get an SEC road win. And despite that just painful loss in Stillwater, now they kind of get that one back, and this one's a little more important, being an SEC road game. So, and now Sam Pittman improves to 11-3 ATS as a road underdog during his tenure. So my good is the Razorbacks, who now get A&M, and if they can win that one, it'll be quite the scene in the Ozarks for the Volunteers coming in there undefeated off an open date next week.
Oh, without question. And I will talk more about this in just a second because I think Saturday was way more about Auburn than it was about Arkansas. So, but my good is what happened Saturday night and in Norman, Oklahoma, with the Tennessee Vols not playing at their normal high octane, frenetic pace self, and still coming out with a double-digit win on the road against Oklahoma. And I read a stat that Tennessee's one of 2 teams in America that has multiple wins over top 25 opponents. I think Tennessee, even with looming dates at home against Alabama and on the road at Georgia, even if you go 0-2 in those games, I don't see how you keep Tennessee out of the top 12. I mean, as long as they handle all the other games they're going to be favored in, Tennessee on Saturday earned themselves a full-blown mulligan. And I think this 10-2 Knoxville bunch, with the way they've looked through the first month, barring an unforeseen injury, I think Tennessee is on the fast track to the playoff.
And you mentioned that Alabama-Tennessee game. Currently at FanDuel, Alabama is favored by 1 on the 3rd Saturday in October. And just while I have it in front of me, I'll also mention that the look-ahead line for LSU hosting Ole Miss next week, which in August or all summer was anywhere from LSU -2 to -3. That line at FanDuel is now Ole Miss -6.5 with a total of 65.5. FanDuel also has Texas as a 1.5 point favorite to Georgia with a total of 53.5. And that's it for the SEC in terms of games of the year at FanDuel. All right, my bad is going to be LSU. They're now 0-4 against the spread. They were never ahead of the number against UCLA, but the bad is mostly, or the unfortunate, is Harold Perkins, best player on the roster, 2-time All-SEC guy, out for the season with a torn ACL, and he is a true junior. So I would bet a lot of money. He has played his last game for the LSU Tigers, and that's a tough one for them to swallow because he is their best player, and they will miss him big time. So that's my bad.
My bad. And before I get to it, what's crazy is we don't have any idea where LSU is going to finish. But with those tackles, with Perkins, and they're going to have some secondary dude show out at the combine. You're talking about an LSU team that's got probably at least 3 first rounders on its roster, and we don't even know if they're going to do much better than going to Birmingham, considering how difficult and nasty the SEC is this year. So my bad is the Auburn Tigers. You cannot. Auburn should be 4-0. They're 2-2. They've lost to inferior opponents, Arkansas and California. Are neither one are as good as Auburn is. Auburn turned it over a combined 10 times in those 2 games. Auburn offensively is in the top 3 in rushing yards per game in the SEC, rushing yards per attempt in the SEC, explosive plays both on the ground and in the air. I think they lead the SEC and are high up there in the nation in 50-yard plus chunk plays, but you just can't throw the ball consistently to the other team. And Auburn's done that. And whether that's coaching, whether that's quarterback play, whether it's bad coaching not to have a better quarterback play in the room, it's on everybody in the building. And it's bad. This should be a 4-0 team that's ranked in the top 20 in the country, period, end of conversation.
All right, my ugly is what happened in Starkville last week as Mississippi State gets not really blown out, and really they could have been much more in the game. They got stopped on 4th and goal at the 1, and they could have recovered a fumble that Florida had in the end zone, and there's like a 14-point swing right there. But you get beat by 17 at home to the Gators, but this is a combo ugly in that Florida gives up 31 first downs, 480 yards of offense to Mississippi State, and more importantly, they give up 240 rushing yards, and that was a lot more until you factored in sack yardage. So Florida gets a win, but the defense is still deplorable. You may be facing the worst offense in the SEC, and you give up 31 first downs and 240 rushing yards. That is pitiful. So my ugly, part Florida, part Hail State.
Well, I'm going to go off the board here. My ugly, and allow me to be the 53-year-old man I am who tries to get up and go to church on Sundays. My ugly is flipping the best SEC game from 3:30 in the afternoon to 7:45, 8 o'clock, whatever ABC decides to start, because that thing doesn't get done till midnight now. And, I mean, you're talking about, I know for you go through a full day of a handful of heavy Budweisers. You get to 10:30, and goodness knows, don't let your phone be around because you're going to make some stupid bets. And the last thing man, I never thought I'd say I miss the CBS broadcast at 3:30 in the afternoon.
Right?
I do.
Too. Me
I
too.
do.
I miss Danielson.
Well, I think he's better than Herbstreit. And I know Brando's better than Fowler. So, I missed him watching Michigan USC over the weekend in the 3:30 slot.
Yeah, it just feels a little different not being at CBS. There's just something about it. It feels different. I agree. I didn't mean to cut you off. Were you done?
No, I'm good.
All right, cool. All right, let's talk some ball games for this weekend. Let's start with a noon Eastern kick on ABC. Kentucky at Ole Miss. So Kentucky responds and covers after the heartbreaker against Georgia. They win 41-6 last week, and Vandegrift 17-24, 237 yards. Jamarian Wilcox, 82 rushing yards on 8 attempts. Dane Key, 7 catches, 145 yards. And now they play at Ole Miss, which improved to 4-0, both straight up and against the spread. Last week, Jackson Dart continues to play dynamite. 79.8 completion percentage, 1,554 passing yards, 12-2 TDI&T ratio, and 90 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. Trey Harris, 38 catches, 628 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So, Bet Online has this game at, I believe, 17 and a half. And I'm looking for it. Here we go. So we've got actually 17 at Bet Online, a total of 53. And let's get the first half line for those who might be interested in that. And that is 9.5 and 27. And I believe the team total was, I think I saw 35.5, which would be the lowest we've had for Ole Miss so far this year. What's your take on Kentucky at Ole Miss?
There are actually a handful of games I really like this week, both in the SEC and across the country. I'm not as super keen on this one with a noon start, with Kentucky getting – I mean, both of them had pretty much cakewalks last week. I think Lane Kiffin's going to – the only play for me is however you want to dial up Ole Miss's offense. Lay the 17 if you want to. Lay the 10, which is the number I saw in the first half, if you want to. Lay the team total. I know if South Carolina is going to get 31, and I know we're prisoners of the moment, and Georgia played bad, and Kentucky really had them on the edge. But I'm telling you, Kiffin's got a different animal than what Georgia has. Kiffin's going to spread you out, and he's going to make you look foolish. And you better get pressure with 4, and you better get it in a heartbeat, or Jackson Dart's going to punish you. So there are a lot of games I like more than this one. So count me a slight lean on Ole Miss, but I'm not heavily invested in this, even though I've been a big believer in Ole Miss all year.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking like you're thinking early in the week, and then yesterday I came around to I'm just going to back Ole Miss until they don't cover. So I'm not saying it's my like favorite game in terms of muscle on the units and all that, but I am going to have 3 plays on Ole Miss. I'm going to do that team total over, I believe it's 35.5. And I'll check that here before the show's over and clarify that. If your number is 17.5, oh, it looks like all the books have moved to 17, actually. I made the number 18.5, and at 9.5 in the first half, and I would probably do 10 as well. I'm going to do Ole Miss because, Kentucky's defense played great against Georgia. That was at home. They're on the road now, and right now, Ole Miss's offense is not just better than Georgia's, it's a lot better than Georgia's. Now, I'm not saying that'll be the case in November, but right now, when they're healthy, and they are healthy, yeah.
And let's be 100% honest. And again, the game script didn't really matter when the Bulldogs went to Lexington because they were just trying to get out of there unscathed. But Lane Kiffin's going to dial up plays that are way outside the box of whatever Mike Bobo could imagine on a grease board with a whole box full of colored markers. So yes. And Kiffin has actually gone into the humble mode of saying Kentucky has got an NFL defense, of building this up so he can put 60 on them if possible and say, well, we just played an NFL defense and you saw what we did. Because he's 100% Spurrier reincarnated.
Yes, he is, and that's why he's going to look beautiful in that orange and blue next season. All right. So, yeah, I'm Ole Miss all sorts of ways. All right, let's go to Oklahoma at Auburn, ABC, 3:30. Let me find what Bet Online has got us. How far down the board is this one? I should know this. Gosh. Uh,
While you're looking, I will say I think it's very important. You're dealing with this in Florida, and it's pointed directly towards Chattanooga. But friends, we're sitting here on a Thursday. Please be mindful of the weather in the southeast and the hurricane, and it's going to become a tropical storm that's going to dump anywhere from 6 to 12 inches of rain on wherever you're sitting in the SEC footprint, because it is also very pertinent in this game in Auburn. It's going to be soggy.
Yep. Yeah, it is. And the line at Bet Online is -1.5 for Oklahoma. So there's a lot of twos out there. There's even a 2.5 at Circus. So if you want to bet Auburn, you don't want to bet it at Bet Online. But if you want to bet Oklahoma, Bet Online is exactly where you want to be. And the money line at Bet Online is -125 Oklahoma, Auburn +105. I think we might be knocking heads, opposite sides on this one. What do you got, Jay?
I like Auburn in every measure. I think it's going to be low scoring, but I think that plays into what Auburn wants to do. Terrible spot for the freshman quarterback to be making his first start on the road in terrible conditions for Oklahoma. Their defense and Brent Venables has put together a really good defensive scheme, but I don't think there's the desperation level is off the charts for Hugh Freeze and company. Now, maybe a loss here and 4-8 is a real possibility for the kids on the Plains, because the schedule gets a hell of a lot harder. The first 5 games have been in Lee County, Alabama. The next 7, 4 of them are on the road, and they get infinitely harder. So I think the recruits that are headed, including Deuce Knight, the 5-star quarterback Auburn's trying to flip, are I think Auburn will play its best game of the year on Saturday. I truly do.
Any thoughts on Freeze's post-game presser last week?
Not overly. I mean, I think the snippets, especially what Bo Wallace took exception with, I'm pretty certain you can take random sentences out of every post-game news conference and turn it into whatever you want it to be. There was a whole lot of mea culpas from Hugh Freeze that did not make the social media round.
Sure.
I don't know if Hugh Freeze is the guy ultimately. I really don't. What I do know is Auburn can't afford to keep firing guys every 2 years and expect something different to happen as you hit reset button after reset button. As an Auburn graduate, my fellow alum and my fellow Auburn fans, take a flipping step back and realize that we may have to take some lumps before we get better. He's got a worse record through 17 games than Brian Harsin does. But the program's in a hell of a lot better spot because it's got a hell of a lot more talent.
Yeah, and you want to take a stab at that early line for Auburn at Georgia next week?
20.5.
27. So there's that.
Yeah, but hey, that's both teams coming off what could be some eye-opening appearances on Saturday.
Oh, all these lines could shift by 7 points in a matter of one Saturday afternoon results. I'll just make one statement on, we know how things can go on the Plains. You know as well as anybody, and I know pretty well too. You get beat at home Saturday and then get run out of Athens next week. It's going to be a long open date with a 2-4 record if that comes to fruition. And we've seen things go south on a coach in Auburn quickly. I'm not predicting that this year by any means, but just throwing it out there. All right, I'm going against one of my all-time betting rules. I usually fade a rookie in the NFL or a freshman in college making their first career road start, especially at a venue like Jordan-Hare. But I'm going with Oklahoma. I'm not saying it's like my favorite pick of the week, but I got a -125 on the money line. The freshman did lead two fourth quarter touchdown drives last week, and I'm hoping he gives them a spark. Kind of like the young quarterback for A&M gave a spark at Florida, making his first career start on the road. So give me OU, and hopefully Michael Hawkins will play well. We shall see. All right, let's go. Arkansas A&M, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, and Bet Online has A&M -4 with a total of 52, and Arkansas plus 163 on the money line. What you thinking here, Jay?
Well, first, I think for clarity, this game's in Dallas, right? It's at Jerry World. It's not in
Correct.
College Station.
Correct.
So, man, I honestly think I trust Arkansas more than I trust A&M. I mean, there are multiple games, including a couple of Big Ten games, I like way more than I like SEC games this week, and there are games across the SEC, including the biggest game of the season to date, that I like a heck of a lot more than this game. You go to a neutral site. I still think Arkansas's got the better quarterback. I know Arkansas's got the better play caller. Arkansas has been, after last week, you have to say they've been more tested, at least in a road environment, than what A&M did, because A&M went to Florida and punched them in the face early and took the crowd out of it. So I don't know. I don't know on this one, Brian. But if I a gun to my head, I'm going to go with the Petrino Green combo, and I'd even maybe look at some over numbers here.
Well, I ended up taking Auburn, Arkansas over last week, which I don't think was as bad a pick as the result made it. Hunter with the fumble and just a lot of turnovers and whatnot. But I'm not going with an Arkansas total. What did I say it was? 52.
52.
Yeah, I'm a little gun shy on an Arkansas total right now. This is going to be a pass for me. The look ahead line last week from DraftKings was A&M -9, and I said right then I like Arkansas -4. Yeah, I mean now I might be looking to play an end game. If A&M scores on their opening drive, takes a 7-0 lead, and I can get Arkansas, plus 6.5 or 7, I would be interested in that. But pregame, it's a pass, and I'll just mention that Texas A&M, since coming into the SEC, 11-1 against Arkansas. But a lot of those games were field goal games at the end, couple of 1-point games, multiple overtime games, etc. I mean, it's rarely a blowout.
This really does. I mean, to your point, this feels like a one-score game either way.
Right. Oh, I agree for sure. I would have loved to have gotten the 9 on the look ahead line last week, but that did not happen. All right, next game. Let's go Mississippi State at Texas, 4:15 p.m. Eastern on the SEC Network. Quinn Ewers is questionable on the availability report provided, and those become available at 8 Eastern, by the way, on Wednesday nights. And then I think they update it again Friday, and then update it at some point game day. I want to say pretty early or a couple hours for kick or something to that effect. But forget that. Arch Manning's playing this game. Texas got an open date next week before playing Oklahoma. I do not expect to see Quinn Ewers. And let's see. The line is at Bet Online, Texas -38 with a total of 61.5. And for those maybe looking to first half, Texas is -24. This game is a pass for me. I can't lay that big of a number, but Blake Shapen out for the season for Mississippi State in case you missed it. And so there's where I am on this one.
Well, I mean, I'm with you on the pass. I think the only play is, I mean, I don't see how you can back Mississippi State in any way, shape, or form in this. Do you?
No. It's Texas or pass, but I'll pass.
And I'm trying to come up with an SEC versus SEC game that had a spread north of 38.
Yeah, no,
I mean, maybe Spurrier did it against Vandy back in his heyday,
right.
but
Not
I
often.
mean, I know a lot of people always talk about, and it was because it became remembered as the biggest conference upset in terms of spread when Harbaugh's Stanford team beat that
40,
unbelievable USC team, and they were 40, 41, and
41. Yeah, 41 and
playing
a half.
underdog.
That was the
But
same night that Les Miles went 5 for 5 on 4th and inches against Florida, and dumbass Oscar Mayer left a timeout in his pocket. We'd have 40 more seconds left with Tebow at LSU's 35 because he's an idiot. But anyway,
but I mean, it didn't leave a lasting mark for you, did it?
no, I remember exactly
Yeah.
where I was.
A lot of people remember where they were when Kennedy was shot. A lot of people remember where they were for the moon landing, 9/11. Brian remembers when Les Miles outcoached Oscar Mayer.
Yeah, I remember every time Oscar Mayer pissed me off and exactly where I was. All
Well,
right.
he's got good memory because
Yeah,
that's like 2,000 different opportunities.
right. I can name most of them for you. All right, let's take a timeout. Are you an experienced entrepreneur looking to diversify, or are you an employee that's simply tired of answering to the man? If so, let me tell you about our guy, Andy Ludecke, and his business, MyPerfectFranchise.net. Like you, Andy had it with corporate America. He was married with a kid and another on the way. He wanted to start his own business and did just that. And now he has multiple businesses and he can show you how to do the same thing. Here's how it works. You go to Andy's website, myperfectfranchise.net. You set up an intro call, a 1 hour consultation, and it's 100% free. You tell Andy about your passions, your skills, goals, and the time and money you have to invest in this endeavor. And Andy wants to help. He wants to help people. He'll figure out a way to figure out your sort of business that fits your DNA. He'll register you with potential franchises. He'll find the best franchise that suits the vision and corporate culture you want. And before you know it, you'll be on your way, and Andy will have you making greenbacks galore. So what are you waiting for? Reach out to Andy Ludecke at myperfectfranchise.net. All righty, let's move on to the big one. Georgia at Alabama, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Bet Online currently has Georgia favored by 2 with a total of 48. Alabama has beaten Georgia in 8 of the last 9 head-to-head meetings. And I'll remind you, the one win that Georgia did get, that was 5 or 6 weeks after they had gotten run out of Atlanta 41-24 by Alabama. But Mechie, the star receiver for Bama, tore his ACL. And then in the rematch in Indianapolis in the national title game, CFP Finals, that's when Jamison Williams blew his knee out when he was having a huge first half, and Alabama had the lead. And without Mechie and without Jamison Williams, Alabama could not muster much offensively in the second half, and Georgia rallied for a 33-18 win. But they don't play at Bryant Denny a lot, but I'll just mention they haven't won there since 07 when Stafford threw a walk-off touchdown pass in overtime. I like Alabama. I am on Alabama. What say you, Jay?
I'm on the other side. We've got multiple games this week. We are on differing opinions.
This
I like
this
Georgia
is
a
not
lot.
usual. This is
No, it's
unusual.
not. I like Georgia a lot because I think all those stats you just said are Saban stats, not Alabama stats. And I think Kirby Smart is better at this than Kalen DeBoer. I trust Carson Beck more than I trust Jalen Milroe. I think Georgia has been challenged more than Alabama's been challenged. I think they've got a better idea of who they are. And I think Kirby, even though he denied it in SEC media days, I think Kirby has reminded his boys, his program, his coaches, his support staff, his wife, who used to be known as Mary Beth Lysette, who was an outstanding high school basketball player who I covered at Morrow High School before I even went to the Marietta Daily Journal. He has told anybody who will listen how ticked off he is that Alabama spoiled the three-peat last year in Atlanta. This one, and he swore up and down at SEC Media Days this year that they weren't looking to last year for motivation. Bull. This has been the game they have circled from the get. And just like how we talked about Tennessee and Oklahoma, the winner of this game gets mulligans. The winner of this game, you're talking September 28th, and you're gonna the wheels are gonna have to fall off, or you're in the playoff. Period. End of conversation. Especially if you're Georgia and you do it on the road.
Yeah, I just still think that Georgia's Alabama's bitch. We saw it again in December, the first Saturday in December in Atlanta last year. Now it's a home game, first home underdog spot for the Crimson Tide since 2007. I like the way Jalen Milroe's playing. I love the freshman wide receiver, and I like Alabama to win outright in this one. All right.
Now, I'm gonna differentiate, and maybe this time next week you can keep saying that Georgia's Alabama's bitch, but I think Georgia, like every other team in America for the last 17 years, has been Nick Saban's bitch, and Nick Saban is now going to be on our TV from 10 to noon on ESPN, trying to tolerate Pat McAfee. But he's not going to be on the sideline Saturday night.
I think Kalen DeBoer is pretty good at his job. So now I hear everything you're saying. I just got to correct you. Well, he's been retired a while, but Spurrier was never Nick Saban's bitch. Just to clarify, not to you, just to the audience in general. In fact, Saban was Spurrier's bitch. 3-1 straight up 4-0 against the spread. Spurrier saves head-to-head matchups. Just
how many of those were LSU though?
It was actually 2 Florida LSU and 2 South Carolina Alabama.
Well, okay. Tuberville was better than against.
Saves is Spurrier's bitch. Saves is Spurrier's bitch.
You're going to go make me look up who had the best record against Spurrier just to make you tear up.
I wonder who that would be. Did Tuberville have a good record against? Tuberville had a good record against Florida. He had a good record, but some of those were Meyer. He got Spurrier in 0-1 in that win game when David Duval went like 5 for 5 on 40-yard and longer field goals, and the wind's blowing 30 miles an hour. It was craziness. All right, South Alabama at LSU. SEC Network, 7:45 p.m. I have a strong opinion on this game. I like this game a lot, but a few stats first. Brian Kelly, as a home favorite at LSU, 9-4-1 against the spread. However, 0-2 ATS in 2 such spots this year. What you thinking on this one, Jay?
Well, I'm thinking that your coyness and your sleight of hand, like you're trying to run a 3-card Monty in a New York City subway station, screams to me that you love South Alabama. And I understand that. I understand that, especially in there are going to be a lot of long faces with the Harold Perkins news. And, LSU, man, they're really cute when they try to play defense. They're just cuddly when they try to tackle people. So South Alabama is one of those teams in the Southeast that when they start elevating and they get a couple of transfers and they're going to mess around, there was always a day that you never wanted to play Georgia Southern because they were getting their fair share of the South Georgia kids. If South Alabama's getting 1 out of every 3 Mobile kids that don't go to Tulane or maybe go to Auburn or wherever, those kids can play. So, again, there are a handful of games, and I'm happy to share them outside the league. But I think the only play here is South Alabama. I don't understand how you can trust LSU at this point.
Yeah, LSU 0-4 against the spread, and South Alabama. So they're only 2-2 straight up and against the spread. But in week 2, when they lost at Ohio, 27-20, their star quarterback Gio Lopez was out with an injury, so he came back in week 3 They beat Northwestern State 87-10, and then they went to App State last week. I can't remember. If it was, I think it was Thursday, but
It
anyway,
was
whatever.
Thursday.
Yeah,
And laying them out of Boone. I
yeah,
mean,
that doesn't happen
up
very
in
often.
the field on them. Yeah, no, that does not happen often. Like turn that one off at halftime bad.
Yeah, 48-14. And Lopez now for the season, again, he's only played 3 games, 62.0 completion percentage, 843 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also has 169 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns and an 8.0 yards per carry average. Left-handed southpaw. Look, LSU never got ahead of the number against UCLA, but even if they do get ahead of the number this week, the back door will be wide ass open. But I don't think
they
go
never
ahead.
got ahead of the number at South Carolina. And I think the Lopez kid is, I mean, let's be honest. If South Carolina starter doesn't get hurt, there are a lot of rumblings going on in Red Stick right now because South Carolina wins the football game.
Yeah.
I mean, Robbie Ashford comes in, and as an Auburn graduate, I have experienced the Robbie Ashford experience, and it's not a whole lot of fun. So, but I mean, you and I talked about this in the summer. We were both on LSU under their win total. And I mean, they still may get north of 9.5, but every game is a fight. And I don't feel comfortable laying any type of serious lumber with what Brian Kelly and that group is doing down there.
Yeah, no, I agree. In fact, I couldn't believe the line when I saw it. In fact, what did I make it? I made LSU 16. And so when I saw 20.5, I jumped on it. Well, I was stupid. I mean, it's now I didn't get the bet online line, did I? So let's see. It's been 22 here. Yeah, still 22 at Bet Online. Total of 65.5. I'm all about the Jaguars of South Alabama plus 22. Okay, so that goes through all the games, but we've got some look-ahead lines for SEC play next week. And so let's play the guessing game with Mr. Greeson. What do you think on UCF and your former coach, Gus Malzahn, at the Swamp?
I think we'll know a little more about UCF this weekend. But I would probably say that's either a pick 'em or maybe Florida -2.
So when I saw it this morning, it actually opened last night. It was UCF -1, but now it's UCF -1.5. Okay, we did Auburn, Georgia. Georgia's 27. And let's do Tennessee at Arkansas.
Tennessee -4.5.
Tennessee open -10.5. It's now -11.
Wow.
And
that's too many.
That's respect to those Vols and Nico, isn't it? Okay, so all summer long, now let's keep in mind for next week, Missouri's trip to College Station, Missouri has 2 weeks off, or, has an open date, 2 weeks to prepare, whereas A&M is going to be playing its 6th game in 6 weeks and is off a rivalry game against Arkansas. So all summer, DraftKings had this game, A&M -4. What do you think they have it at now?
Who are they playing?
Oh, A&M at home to Missouri.
Woo, coming off a bye week. A&M -1.
A&M -2. All right, it's a good guess in there by Mr. Greeson. Just for anyone's interest, the other games are Ohio State -23 to Iowa, Michigan -2 at Washington, Nebraska -5.5 at home to Rutgers, Oklahoma State -7.5 at home to West Virginia, Miami -14 at Cal. Late night game. Wilcox great as a home underdog. I wrote all about there are 13 games. I wrote all about them, and you can find that right up on majorwager.com. All right, some non-SEC picks this week. Jay, what you got?
I got a couple, actually. A couple that I really like and will be on a lot with a lot more weight than some of the SEC games. I'm probably going to start with Kansas State at home against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's offensive line has underwhelmed Kansas State's defensive line. Oklahoma State's offensive line, according to Pro Football Focus, is 111th in the country out of 131 Division FBS teams. Kansas State's defensive front is its strength, and OSU allows 180 plus rushing yards a game. What does Kansas do? They ran the football 14 times more frequently, despite getting blown out last week. So this is a great spot for the Wildcats in the Little Apple. I think Michigan manhandles Minnesota in the Big House. I mean, Minnesota gave up 31 points to Iowa. That's a good month for Iowa. That's a 3-1 month for Iowa, 31 points. They did that. They did 24 of those in the second half. So, and I think this is worthy of our time before we get to your picks. I love for this spot for Fresno State going to UNLV, which is undefeated, but is now having to deal with the fallout of their fifth-year senior quarterback announcing that he has decided on his own to redshirt because NIL promises that were made during the portaling process from the running Rebels have not been fulfilled, and he's walking away from the locker room. I think this is going to be the Curt Flood and Curt Flood, if you did not know, is the former Major League Baseball player who sued for free agency because before that, teams had the right of first refusal to match any contract, and players had to go back. He sued for free agency and won, and it really revolutionized modern sports. This UNLV QB1 is going to be just the first of many of these guys. And moreover, I think a lot of people who love college football like you and I do should be scared of kids on teams. What happens if Carson Beck and Georgia's 8-0 and he decides he needs another, not just what he was promised, but needs more? Because without contracts, this kid can then say whatever he wants to say, you know?
Yeah, where the hell are you, NCAA? Get your act together, NCAA. Get some rules going on.
There needs to be some uniformity across the college football landscape to this, certainly among the big boys. And the last thing we need is the NCAA to be in charge. The second to last thing we need is for Congress to get involved. The college football needs to make Nick Saban whatever money offer he wants. He's got the gravitas to be the czar of college football. Let him do to college football what Kennesaw Mountain Landis did after the Black Sox scandal and saved Major League Baseball in 1920. Granted, he had Babe Ruth, and that helped galvanize the country around the love of the game again. But somebody's going to have to come up with some sort of structure that does not that addresses all of these loopholes, potholes, and, for lack of a better word, assholes.
Yep. All right, let me, before I get to some of my non-SEC picks, wanted to give the updated odds to win the SEC championship game from Bet Online. Georgia is the plus 210 favorite, but Texas only 5 cents away at plus 215. Bama plus 375. Ole Miss plus 600 or 6-1. Tennessee 8-1. Missouri 20-1. LSU and A&M are 28-1. Oklahoma and Arkansas are 100-1. Everybody else is 500-1. All right, I'm going to go with Illinois plus 18 at Penn State. The last time they went to Happy Valley 2 years ago, they won outright as a 24.5-point underdog. Brett Bielema as a road underdog at Illinois is 10-3 against the spread. They've got a day of extra rest after winning at Nebraska last Friday. Former Ole Miss quarterback Luke Altmaier is a new man this year. 71.4 completion percentage, 862 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, and no picks. And he's got former Ole Miss and more so UTSA receiver Zachary Franklin, who was not healthy really for Ole Miss last year. He's got him healthy and playing well. 21 catches, 243 yards. Pat Bryant, 6 touchdown catches already. Give me Illinois plus 18. Let's also go with Cincinnati. Now, I couldn't believe what I saw. I made Cincinnati a 1.5-point road favorite at Texas Tech. And Sunday morning, FanDuel had Texas Tech favored by 7. I don't have a FanDuel account. By the time my account posted lines on Sunday, all I could get Cincinnati was +4. But what a horrible number they sent out. It's now +2.5. Maybe buy it to 3. Circa's actually got it at 3. So I'll call it Cincinnati +3. But they're getting great QB play out of Indiana transfer Brendan Sorsby. 8 touchdowns, no picks, 3 rushing touchdowns. And I like the Bearcats there. And Rutgers -2.5 at home to Washington tomorrow night. That's Friday night. Love Will Rogers, the ex-Mississippi State quarterback, 8 touchdown passes, no interceptions. But it's a short week, a cross-country trip situation definitely favors Rutgers. They were very impressive in Blacksburg last week. They jumped to a 14-0 first quarter lead, led 16-7 at half, 23-7 early third. The Hokies mounted a rally, but Rutgers held on. And they are, surprisingly, in my opinion, getting good quarterback play from Kaliak Manis, who had a terrible year for Minnesota last year, 6-1 TDI-INT ratio. I like Rutgers -2.5. I haven't bet it yet, but it's certainly on my radar, and that's Kurt Signetti's Indiana Hoosiers -7 at home to Maryland. I'm looking at that one, and I'm also considering Bowling Green -9.5 or 10 to Old Dominion. I'm wanting to find out if Old Dominion's starting quarterback, who was out in their last game, and their All-American linebacker Jason Henderson, who also missed time in their last game. I want to find out if those guys are in or out. And I haven't been able to do that yet because there's not much coverage of ODU up in the Twitter sphere, but maybe that'll change as we get closer to kick. All right. What else you got, Mr.
Well,
Green?
one final thing, because you touched on Washington going to Rutgers. And I saw this stat today doing the 5 at 10, which is my morning column at timesfreepress.com every Monday through Friday. Washington will travel 8,312 miles just for its 4 conference games this year. By regional comparison, Brian, according to kayak.com, Washington will travel more for its conference road tests than Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Texas, and Vandy combined.
Wow. That's a lot of time for a 6'6", 320-pound offensive tackle to spend in a cramped-up airplane. Yikes. Yikes. Oh, gosh. All right, so if you want to go to
do grown men fight in diapers this weekend?
They do, and I like 2 underdogs. Now, nothing heavy. Like these amounts are nothing compared to my football bets this weekend, but I do like 2 underdogs as I'm trying to find my UFC odds page. Where is it? MMA. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I like Renato Money Moicano. Yes, as a +235 underdog at Caesars, but +220 or better. Money Moicano, and then Brendan Allen as a +180 underdog at Bet Rivers. 2 underdogs. If we get a split, we profit. If we get a sweep, we're loving life. And I wanted to point out a high updated Heisman odds piece that I wrote for Major Wager. And toward the end, I made a case for a couple of long shots. And actually, I'll go to it and mention them here briefly because I think it's pretty interesting the schedule that Indiana has because their quarterback Curtis Rourke has 100-1 odds and he's playing great football. And I just had to look at Indiana's schedule. So, and I want to hear your take on this because I'm sure you're going, he ain't winning the Heisman or even going to be in the mix. So these are Indiana's remaining games, and they're 4-0 right now. They're favored by 7 to Maryland. They're at Northwestern. They're home to Nebraska, home to Washington, at Sparty, home to Michigan, at Ohio State, and at home to Purdue. Other than the Ohio State game, there's a chance they might be favored in all those games. So maybe not Michigan. We'll see. And some of them will be tight. But so Indiana's been playing football since 1887. They've never won 10. They've won 9 twice in 1945 and 1967. So my point being, if they just make 10-2 or even 9-3, that'll be a big time story. I mean, there's a possibility that they could be undefeated going into Ohio State with 2 weeks to prepare. If that's the case, Curtis Rourke is going to be getting some Heisman hype. He's got a 75.5 completion percentage, 8 touchdowns, no picks, 2 rushing touchdowns. Indiana, I think, is going to beat Maryland to go to 5-0. And so, anyway, it's 100-1. And then guess who's 150-1? Cam Rising. And he leads the nation in QB rating. Now, we don't know if he's coming back this week or after the open date, but I thought at 150-1, Cam Rising was worth some small change. So if you want to read about that, go to Major Wager. All right, that's about all I got. How about you?
Best of luck to everybody this weekend. I need to do better this weekend than I did last. We hit some games in this space last weekend. I mean, I liked Arkansas, but sometimes what we talk about on Thursdays heading into the weekend, you get a little sidetracked on Saturdays and may get talked into going outside of your original plan, which did not serve me all that well this weekend.
Well, how about the Georgia Tech loss for me? I mean, they out-yarded, out first down, out time of possession. They out everything Louisville, and we're catching, well, for my line, it was 10.5. But Louisville gets a defensive touchdown and then a blocked field goal returned 60 yards for a touchdown, and I lose by 1. And then Cal has 410 yards of offense to FSU's 284, but Cal misses a 36-yard field goal and a 38-yard field goal and doesn't cover. So I had 2 beats that I thought were just brutal. But that was last week. Good luck with your bets. Stay safe from the hurricane. And like Jay mentioned, keep in mind your weather on games in the Southeast. He's Jay Greeson. I'm Brian Edwards. We are Southeastern 16, brought to you by Bet Online. Have a great weekend, everybody.